The British tabloid The Sun had this headline: Putin is a death cult leader who could still nuke Ukraine. Like, what? And looking into it, it's interesting because they are talking about research by this gentleman, Keir Giles, who is a academic at the Chatham House in Britain, and he just did a research paper. He just published this thing, Russia Nuclear Intimidation. And he has, first of all, there's no death cult, okay? Giles is not talking about this. However, Giles brings attention to something that I've noted before, is that Russia seems to be having a one-sided intimidation, right? Russia mentions nukes, and the West talks about what it won't do. And the West never says that it would respond in kind to a Russian nuclear use. And he says as long as the West is doing that, Putin has a one-sided intimidation going on here. Now, that's the 1-minute version for shorts and reels. A longer look at this, in looking at what Giles argues, Giles, and again, I kind of am on board with him because I have wondered about this. Russia says, oh, we might do this. And I think that they have been using nuclear rhetoric and vague, nuclear innuendo, right? Oh, we're going to get out of START. Oh, we're going to put nuclear weapons in Belarus to raise the specter, just to remind us that Russia has nukes. Now, of course, Russia needs to do this because they really, their reputation is in tatters, right? Basically, all they've got that might be intimidating at this point is nukes. So they're kind of left with, in the escalation ladder, you have this idea that there are rungs that go up. And if you're at one rung and want to prevent your enemy from going up, you have to be able to fight better at the next rung up. And the U.S. has always worried about that and said, we have to make sure that we're not totally dependent on the nuclear capability. Well, guess what? Russia, at this point, their lower rungs look horrible. They just have the top rung of a nuclear exchange. So that is something that's there. But at the same time, I will take exception with Giles's argument that the West needs to say we will respond in kind to nuclear rhetoric. We're not going to respond in kind. That's a vague and empty threat, right? We're not going to pop off a nuke. But what we are going to use is our devastating conventional advantage. So I would say that we need to say, I think he's right. We need to not be saying what we won't do, but we need to be, alluding to, laying out, look, there's a lot of things we can do, from, direct intervention in a conventional sense, or maybe even just giving Ukraine more weapons. There are a lot of things you don't want us to do. So, being more aggressive on the Western side, saying, look, here are the consequences. And the question is, do vague assurances, vague comments that will do something, get us where we need to go, or do we need to be more specific in laying things out? And that's very problematic because being more specific sounds like a threat, right? But Giles's point, though, is that, look, Ukraine itself shows Putin miscalculates. It shows that even if something isn't in Russia's interest, they might do it anyway. And therefore, we need to recognize there's a non-zero chance, a small but non-zero chance, that Russia might use nukes. I would say I couldn't argue with that. I'm mostly on board with him on this. It's an interesting point. You can see his whole research paper and his whole analysis at the Chatham House website.